ever been walking through the graveyard and wondered what stories it could be hiding, or which fascinating historical figures may be there? But what about the cemetery itself, which has its own interesting history? The Brockville Cemeteries are sometimes called the Old Brockville Cemeteries, which began as a combination of cemeteries that were scattered about Brockville. These included Buell's Public Burying Ground, St. Peter's Anglican Cemetery, St. Xavier's Catholic Cemetery, and Wall Street Methodist Chapel Cemetery, and various small private and religious graveyards that were scattered around town. In the 1830s, most people in Brockville lived between Church Street and the river, with small cemeteries dotted amongst them, the largest one just east of what was called Wall Street Methodist Chapel. But town officials wanted the cemeteries to be further away from where people lived. So in 1831, William Buell created the first public graveyard called Buell's Public Burying Ground on a plot of land where his family had their own private cemetery. This cemetery was bordered by Buell's Creek to the north, William Street to the east, and then stretched south towards Lewis Street west. Buell's Public Burying Ground was in use until the city of Brockville started to surround it. By 1851, city planners were worried again about the proximity of the numerous graveyards to people and the negative health effects that could happen because of this. So, Brockville Town Council passed a bylaw to close all the small in-town cemeteries and open one large one somewhere outside of town in a more rural area. With the passing of this bylaw, a cemetery committee was created to find a new location with enough land for all the current in-town burials and future growth. It was decided that the best place was on a plot of land owned by the Grant family just outside of town. In July of 1851, the city purchased a 14-acre parcel of land from the Grant family on the south side of Highway 2, bordering Grants Creek for £110. By 1852, the new cemetery grounds were surrounded by a fence, and it had been divided up into 3 sections. The western section was leased to the congregation of St. Peter's Church and became known as Old St. Peter's Cemetery. The southern portion was turned over to St. Francis Xavier's Roman Catholics and became the Old Roman Catholic Cemetery. And the central portion, now called the Old General Protestant Cemetery, remained under control of Brockville Town Council. In 1861, the first official burials were taking place in the new Brockville cemeteries, and the in-town cemeteries were closed, and many families had the remains and the headstones of their loved ones exhumed and moved to the new locations. But there were those burials of the unidentified and forgotten that were never removed, such as those in the original St. Peter's Cemetery, which is now known as Victoria Park. In 1890, the Brockville Cemetery was enlarged with the purchase of an additional 46 acres of land from the Grant family on the north side of Highway 2. This section, now known as Oakland Cemetery or St. Peter's Cemetery and St. Francis Xavier Cemetery. Since 1891, the cemeteries on the north side of the highway have continued to develop, and both sections have been continued to be maintained and cared for. And, with the exception of the old and new Catholic cemeteries, owned and administered by the city of Brockville. Join us as we explore these various cemeteries and the stories they tell in the Brockville Museum's new Stories from the Stones series. For more interesting stories from the Stones, be sure to tune in next time. Bye everyone.